There's some breaking news tonight about that reported hush money paid to porn star, I don't know if she's a star, but porn actress, I don't know, is she an actress? Anyway, Stormy Daniels over her alleged affair with the president years ago. The New York Times is now reporting that Michael Cohen, the president's lawyer, says he paid the $130,000 out of his own pocket. Maggie Haberman joins me now on the phone. Maggie, explain what this story is.
Sure, Anderson. Michael Cohen told me that he had paid that $130,000 payment that the Wall Street Journal first reported on last month as coming from an unknown LLC that he had set up, but he had not answered any questions about it. He now confirms that he paid it. He says it was money out of his own pocket, that it was not money from the campaign or money that was routed to him through some other fashion. He said this because it's essentially what he said in response to a complaint the Common Cause filed, the Good Government Group, with the FEC and the DOJ. About the nature of that payment. They alleged that it was an in-kind contribution. There was widespread speculation that it was. Look, we obviously have not seen bank records, but Cohen has been Trump's lawyer and working at the Trump Organization for roughly a decade in the time that I've known him, and he was among the most vocal attack dogs on behalf of Trump last year, and he would often chase down information even if it was later deemed false, because he kept saying to people that, even false information could be damaging to him. He would not answer a number of additional questions, though, including why he did this, whether the president knew, when exactly this took place, and so forth and so on. So this will go on, but this is the first time he's talked about it.
Well, let me ask you, Maggie, was there a reason why he spoke now about it? Because obviously this was a story that broke several weeks ago. Questions were raised, questions were asked about him. He could have said very well right then, that was my money, I gave it personally. Was there some sort of a filing from this this lawsuit?
He had a window with which to respond to the FEC, and this was right within that window. So he addressed it publicly.
So he addressed it publicly, but didn't answer any further questions that you had?
Correct. And there are a number of remaining questions.
What questions would you ask? I mean, would you like to get answers on?
Well, I mean, the questions that I did ask were, why then? Did the president know? Is there any record of this transaction in terms of his personal money? Were there any other similar circumstances? Remember, Cohen has said that Trump has denied a relationship with her, I think her real name is Stephanie Clifford, with the woman whose stage name is Stormy Daniels. Then that raises the question, were there other similar instances where money could have been paid?
Does it make sense that Michael Cohen would pay out of his own pocket?
Well, the reason he's coming forward and saying this is because there was an allegation that perhaps the campaign made the payment.
And thereby violating campaign law.
Apparently you're not allowed to use campaign funds for that. It's a non-standard use of campaign funds. So that's what this is in response to. I imagine if the litigation goes forward, he's going to have to go beyond making a statement. He's going to have to show some documentation that it was indeed his personal funds, that he wasn't reimbursed by the Trump Organization or the campaign.
But you would think there would be obviously documentation of
Well, they apparently set up an LLC to make the payment.
Right. But why would he do that if he didn't need to? Clearly he needed to, and I guess that's the big question. Unless he hired her for some work that he owed her money for, I have no idea.
Well, he's obviously tacitly conceding that this happened. There was a payment.
Well, of course, but the question is, what was the payment for? I mean, this is all sorts of disgusting and bizarre. Right, but they haven't said it. And so that I think is sort of the next round of questions. Obviously, that was the one thing that Maggie asked that she refused, or that he refused to talk about.
It is interesting when this story did break, I guess it was in the Wall Street Journal, and we had the reporter on, and there were numerous questions asked of Michael Cohen, and he could have answered them back then, but it's not until this lawsuit, I guess.
But first, can I just say this is the best infrastructure week ever? I'm just so glad we're just focused on rebuilding our crumbling roads and bridges. I tend to believe him because this is going into a legal proceeding. FEC is not actually court, but it could be in court soon enough. And Cohen's a good lawyer. By God, he's a loyal friend, though. I mean, my lawyer wouldn't get to do it, but there was a similar situation. Remember John Edwards, the senator from North Carolina, ran for president. There was a lawyer friend of his who spent probably even more than that trying to hide Senator Edwards' affair that came out. So it's not crazy. in the context of a campaign and deep loyalty like that. So, I mean, maybe I'm always too credulous.
It worked really well for John Edwards.
It did not work out very well.
That stayed hidden, right?
Well, and that attorney has passed away before it could all be litigated out.
Just to bring this full circle, again, you just don't want these, things that are hidden out there to be like coming up, that can be used against people in the administration. This is not good. This pattern, this is not a one-off. Again, we're seeing this in the course of multiple people associated with this campaign, and it's a big problem, and you have to wonder, what else is there?
You're saying in relation to not everybody having a security clearance in the White House.
Blackmail, exactly. You don't want, and these are some of the issues that have been raised. Is there leverage over some of the people that worked in this campaign that could have been manipulated?
That might know some of those things.
This is really similar to all the criticism Democrats gave Bill Clinton when he had an affair in the Oval Office. Oh, that's right. They didn't bring up blackmail back in those days. I guess it wasn't as big of a deal for a president of the United States to put themselves in a position to be compromised by trying to hide something, lying about it, and then eventually admitting it later on.
Well, and nobody paid anything.
Was he doing deals in Russia?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, was he like traveling to Russia?
I just want to hear the Democrats make the case for.
Was there a payment by the lawyer? I mean, I don't remember that, Paul.
No, but this doesn't make my top 1,000 scummy things Trump has done. Okay, I'm sorry. It just doesn't. There's no allegation that this was non-consensual. There's no allegation of force or the kind of animalistic behavior that Mr. Porter is accused of. So I don't know why they wanted to cover it up, but Cohen is going to have to prove this in a court of law, and he's too good a lawyer to assert that knowing that he's going to have to prove this.
Well, and he has a book coming out.
Does he really?
Yeah, apparently that's what the...
Could that be why?
I'll buy it. He'll be interested.
I think
Please tell me it's called
Common
Stormy
Cause
Weather.
I hope there's...
I think Common Cause would have to sue the FEC over some decision for it to actually get into litigation, though, right? This was when you say it's an allegation, Common Cause filed a complaint with the FEC, which you can do very easily. People do it all the time to cause this sort of thing. He's now responded to the FEC. That's what the story is.
I'm sure there's sanctions for lying to the FEC, especially for a lawyer.
Oh, you can sue them, actually. If they don't sanction you for something, then someone can bring a suit against the FEC
No,
and say
but
you made the wrong decision.
If the filing to the Federal Election Commission is false and fraudulent, which I don't believe it is, then he's in a lot of trouble.
But
so that's why
I agree with you, Paul, in terms of the things that Trump has done. This doesn't get to the top 1,000 in terms of danger to the national security, unfitness for office, all of that. But what always strikes me is the hypocrisy of the issue. Can you imagine, and in fact it happened with Bill Clinton, can you imagine though if this happened to a Democratic president, the evangelicals, the family values, the Republicans who are focused on, oh my God, that's so immoral, they would be there with pitchforks.
Yeah, they were. Jennifer Flowers, Paula Jones, they were there with pitchforks.
Okay, where are the voices for President Trump right now?
Right.
Where are the Republicans who are saying that's not appropriate behavior for President of the United States?
So the hypocrisy switches places because where were the Democrats criticizing the President Clinton?
There were plenty of Democrats that criticized President
They had
Clinton.
a rally at the White House the day he got impeached.
There were plenty
Literally
of them
on the lawn
out
of the
there.
White House.
But it is interesting the extent to which evangelical voters and evangelical leaders, in the terms of one of them, have given him a mulligan on this stuff. And you hear from time and time again people saying, look, he's not our moral leader. We're not electing him to be the pastor in chief. We're electing him to be, the commander in chief. Does that seem like some sort of sea change to you?
Yeah, I just think some evangelical leaders are just disgracing themselves.
Agreed.
And I think that is different because they are pastors and religious leaders, and they claim a moral high ground that they have completely ceded when they side with Donald Trump. But that's their problem and that's their business. I will say, despite all of that, President Trump cleaned up with evangelical voters. And what my evangelical friends tell me is, we know that he doesn't live the sort of life that we want him to live, but he put Justice Gorsuch on the court, who is, I believe, committed to overturning Roe versus Wade and outlawing abortion in almost all cases. And he's putting judges up and down the federal judiciary that will do that. And to them, they say, it's worth it.
Which, again, is like feminists supporting Bill Clinton because
you keep getting Bill Clinton, Joe Biden, Barack Obama.
Wow.
Can we just talk about the President of the United States?
Because we're talking about hypocrisy.
No, this is the
Do we not want to talk about hypocrisy?
All you guys do is whataboutism.
But in both cases,
Whataboutism, hypocrisy.
In both cases, it's a somewhat rational decision by political actors, right? If evangelicals' choice was Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump in the election, knowing the judges they were going to choose, it's not crazy. Just as many feminists supported Bill Clinton because of the policies and particularly because of the courts. That's the way elections
no one
are.
Has a lock
Sometimes
on
you make
hypocrisy.
sacrifices.
I mean,
absolutely.
That's right.
I think we can all say that.
Yeah.